I'm Parker Jasna Struble, and this is my presentation on ethics of in vitro seafood. The history. The first appearance of vitro, which is lab-grown meats, in 2013 by Dutch scientist Mark Post. Now, this was a very kind of expansive kind of way to introduce vitro meat. People actually were able to taste it, and it did indeed taste like normal meats. Um, so ever since this, there's been many companies that have been growing these kind of lab grown meats into a reality. Vitro meat has been identified as a big replacement for old traditions of meat processes of slaughtering. Now, this is one of the reasons why vitro meat has been a thing um, in the first place. Uh, people, there's some people that believe that traditional ways of growing meat, which it involves slaughtering, is not a kind of good way um, to produce meat for us, and it also increases our carbon footprint, as another way to put it. Seafood is a big industry, and with it only getting bigger, scientists have been researching vitro seafood. Now, this is what we're talking about here. Seafood is obviously a very big industry. And we always hear it, overfishing. It's become a normal, and vitro seafood would be a good alternative to that. The research review, over 17% of protein intake consumption for humans comes solely from seafood. Now, this is a very big number. Even if you think that a percentage it could be small with 17%, it is a very big percentage considering how much of a population that we are. Um, and protein is a very big thing for humans that we need. And vitro seafood could be helpful for that. Around 90% of fish stocks have been seeing overfishing. Vitro seafood would cut down those percentages as an alternative. 90% is a very, very, very big number. Overfishing has become kind of a commodity when it comes to the news and other stuff like that. So Vitro seafood is also a very good alternative for that, and could be a a main kind of source for protein as well. By 2050, seafood consumption will not be enough to feed the entire human population. Now, this is very big because we obviously see all these species getting extinct, and just generally, a lot of species have been becoming extinct. And seafood is nonetheless a very big kind of industry that we are obviously um, putting money into, and that could mean that a lot of fish species could become extinct. Cell cultivated research in seafood has been researched mainly on how the environmental factors will play roles. Now, the reason why these companies are doing cell cultivated research is to see if there could be healthier alternatives, such as more protein in the fish, more kind of meat in the fish. It kind of all matters with this cell cultivated research that has been kind of expanding in this modern age. The pain points, the pros, an alternative to traditional seafood production, which could calm down overfishing. Now, this is a very good one because overfishing is obviously very bad. And traditional seafood is, going out, casting your lines, getting the fish, and taking it away from their habitat. While as vitro seafood would be grown in a lab, you wouldn't need to really um, be by the habitat in order to produce this type of meat. It could provide more protein consumption in a single fish due to cell cultivation techniques, mainly with the gut. So researchers have been studying that the gut actually holds the most protein within a fish. So they've been trying to kind of alter using cell cultivation techniques to alter the gut where it would be able to hold more protein for humans to consume. It could become a faster production method than traditional fishing methods. So for traditional fishing methods, you have to go out, cast a line, get your fish, go back, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you have to do. While whereas in vitro fishing, you have to grow it in the lab, and it could be on the shelves within a couple days. It's such an expansive kind of way to look at this, and food is really needed in a lot of places. So vitro seafood could be a resource for that. The cons, many people still believe that traditional ways are the only way. And I'm kind of 50-50 on this. This could be a cultural aspect, and that takes a lot to change people. But I also see why vitro seafood is becoming a role within this kind of whole industry. Regulations on cell cultivated seafood would have to be introduced, which may take decades before positive production is done. This is kind of a 50-50. Governments have been passing some restrictions um, on vitro food in general. I just know that in 2023 for the US, that chicken was actually passed as kind of a vitro food to be introduced into the shelves. Um, Vitro meat generally is not seen as a natural way to produce meat for consumption. Now, a lot of people see this. I see why it's kind of like a problem that vitro kind of companies need to tackle. But I also see that there is expansion that is happening. There's obviously research that has gone into this, and they see that this is okay for humans to consume. Researching is still being done with many species of fish. No fish species have been passed to commence vitro meat production, and that is correct. No fish species have been passed to commence that. Um, like I said, there was chicken that was passed for the US. I know that China has also passed kind of regulations where companies are now able to put vitro meat on shelves in China. The stakeholders, companies that work with vitro meat, such as Finless Foods, Upside Foods, Mosa Meat, and so on. Finless Foods is probably the most important one here as they work with seafood. They've been researching many different types of fish species and how they kind of interact with their environments. And they pick them to give, the best kind of uh, consummation with humans. Everyday people that eat meat, um, I eat meat. There's probably a lot of people that eat meat. There's vegetarians that don't eat meat, so they probably would not matter unless they turned, kind of meat eaters. Um, there's investors and stockholders in these companies that are also important, the people that put actual money and time into this. Government officials, this is very important because companies need government officials to pass these regulations and to put vitro meat on the shelves. Businesses that use traditional seafood methods. Now, this is one that would be a pretty big blow within that kind of industry if vitro meat was to be introduced onto the shelves. Um, Seafood, especially, there's only been one traditional way that it's done. You go and get your fish, you go out, you put it on the shelves. But vitro seafood could be a very expansive kind of way um, to expand this industry. The potential approaches and solutions. More research to be conducted into vitro seafood so that it can be a safe alternative for the general public. Now, I know that research has been constantly going into this, but I believe that if there was, some sort of approval, which is why, like in the USA, FDA also always approves kind of foods, drugs, etc., that is put out to the public. I believe that like a bigger thing is needed for this, like an announcement saying that, Vitro seafood, Vitro meat in general is just safe to use, safe to eat. The respect of nature should always be a main problem to tackle. So find ways that fish in their original habitats are not displaced. Now, this is a big one that I personally think is big for this, the respect of nature. So a lot of people are derived from kind of their culture, and a lot of cultures also respect the animals. And I think that the respect of nature should always be a very big, important kind of thing that these companies have to kind of overlook. Governmental oversight and regulations could help research opportunities for companies and allow a safe platform to promote a good alternative. Now, governments uh, obviously oversee, the country, especially in the U.S. Laws, regulations always have to be passed, and I believe that for Vitro seafood to really be a big kind of thing, government oversight is needed, as well as more kind of funds for research. In conclusion, Vitro meat is a growing opportunity to reduce overfishing in our oceans, as well as creating a healthier source of protein by using cell cultivated technology. And furthermore, it will revolutionize what we perceive as traditional methods and provide a good alternative for the public. Here are my citations, and thank you very much for watching.